And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today, I am talking with Brian Basinger. Brian, thanks for squeezing me into your busy schedule, sir.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
You are welcome. It's going to be a great conversation. Brian works with business owners around tax strategies to help us learn how to save money in taxes to build wealth as entrepreneurs. I thought that was very intriguing. I thought my audience would love to hear that. So, Brian, that's what we want to talk about, and a lot of other things, I'm sure. But as we kick this thing off, tell me, how in the world did you get to do what you're doing today?
Yeah, I actually started out as just a W-2 employee. I didn't really have any childhood dreams of entrepreneurship or anything like that, and ended up just getting rather dissatisfied with the corporate world over time, and started helping out some friends of mine on the side with their businesses. And eventually that led to me going out on my own and starting my own CPA firm and doing kind of the traditional path there, where I had tons of clients and probably too low of prices. And it was just this journey of understanding where I was adding the most value with clients. And eventually that focused in on taxes and tax strategy. And then I ended up selling that firm about 2 years ago. And the biggest reason I sold it is I was frustrated because we had grown it and turned it into something where we were really only servicing high income and, high wealth taxpayers, because that's where the expertise was and that's who could afford us. And I really wanted to figure out a way to bring this tax strategy to more entrepreneurs and help more people get ahead and understand and keep more of their money in their own business and in their own bank accounts.
I love it. I love it because, well, we all have our journey, right, of different things. But it sounds like you exited for a reason that's different than many, in that you found a, dare I say, a formula or a process or something. You understand taxes well enough to help high net worth people save money. And then you said, I'm going to go help entrepreneurs do that. And I think that's great, because I think so many times we think taxes and first thing we go is, and then the second thing we do is like, well, it's a necessary evil. Well, maybe. And at the same time, if you understand the tax code, the strategies and things, there are ways to grow wealth, to save money properly, legally. We just don't know how to do it. And that's where you come in. Is that fair?
100%. I've had so many conversations with entrepreneurs who weren't going to be able to afford what we did at the CPA firm and need strategy because they're overpaying and didn't really have a place to go. And this idea that taxes are, as you said, a necessary evil is kind of pervasive. And then a lot of business owners find themselves kind of giving up. They switch accountants a time or two, don't find what they need, and just kind of say, well, I guess this is it, and just keep on paying them.
And here's the other thing, and I loved you that you said that. All right, I've got a great CPA, praise God. It hasn't always been the case, right? And I think business owners get frustrated because a lot of CPAs are just, they're CPAs. Praise God for that. But they're not strategists, right? They don't look forward. They wait until at the end of the year when you bring all their stuff and they're just working the numbers. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about 100%. Proactive thinking through taxes and how do I make strategic decisions throughout the year that net me more cash so I can do more things, build wealth, buy houses, invest in equipment, right?
Yeah. It all starts with this proactive approach. And that really is, you talk about a formula, it really comes down to first understanding where you are right now and where you want to go in the future. Maybe you don't like real estate. Maybe you love real estate. Whatever your thing is, where are you right now? Yeah. Where do you want to be? And then we can start to map out a plan to get there and understand, and then use the different tools, entity structures, deductions, and investment strategies to take you from where you are to where you want to go. But all of that has to be done proactively, right? We have to do it now. Once the year's over, everything that happened already happened. And it is truly at that point, just putting the right numbers in the right boxes and reporting it correctly. And that is the boring piece. And everyone should leave that to their accountant because it is boring, but the strategy piece is fun. It just has to be done ahead of time.
Right, right. And you mentioned something really quick, Larry, and you just glossed right over it. Entity structures, and we're not going to go deep into that, but that was something what my CPA told me early on is I'm an LLC, and he's
Yeah.
like, you need to be a sub S.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's a sub S? So he educated me on that. And I'm like, oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Now, and that's just one of multiples of structures, but we did that way early in our business, right? Probably before I needed it, but
Yep.
he understood what you understand. So it's as a business owner, understanding that we are we are conscious incompetence. I know that I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't want to try to figure it out because Brian, A, it's going to take me forever, and B, it'll change by the time I figure it out. That's why you're there. Is that
Absolutely. Some guidance is, I would say, necessary in most cases, but the literacy and the ability to kind of understand the concepts is critical. And like you said, Michael, you were just a regular LLC, and then you transitioned to an S corporation, and you understand what that means, at least on a conceptual level. And you probably understand a whole lot more on conceptual levels, so that as you're going throughout your day and throughout your year, you have things that are going through your mind because you understand the principles and the concepts of, okay, what things do I need to be thinking about for taxes? And for way too many business owners, they don't have that because they're not getting the guidance from their CPA, and they don't know what they don't know. I think you said earlier, you know that you don't know, but there's a big difference there between understanding the concepts and leaving the details to someone else, and kind of being, pardon the word, but like ignorant of the whole thing, and just not taking responsibility for kind of ownership of that knowledge, because there's no CPA who's ever going to care as much as you do. And so having at least enough knowledge to hold someone accountable and say, hey, what about this? What about that? What kind of strategy should we be looking at for this scenario?
well? And I love that, because when you work with Brian, they're going to bring those what if questions to you, or what about questions. What about that? Have you thought about this? Have you? And then a lot of business owners, I'm guessing, that you work with are going to be going, no, I hadn't thought about that, right? Because we're so busy running our business, we don't think about the. Most business entrepreneurs are focused on one thing: gross revenues.
Yeah.
I want to 7-figure business.
Yep.
Well, then they lose so much money. They're probably working, their bottom line net is like 30,000, right? Brian can help you restructure lots of that, but also help you understand lots of other things you can do with that money to help you build wealth. Because having more money is great, but what are you going to do with it? And how do you do that in the most tax efficient way? Is it fair?
That's absolutely right. So our whole business model is based around this idea of how do we bring the strategic thinking and the understanding of these tax and financial principles to business owners at a lower price point, so that they can get access to this information much, much earlier than if they had to wait until they could afford a high price CPA. There really are two kinds of accountants out there. There's the really expensive one, who's usually really good. And then there's the inexpensive one who's got 400 clients and is not really putting any thought into strategy. And they both have CPA written above their door. So it's hard to tell who's who. And what we're trying to do is help out new business owners to say, hey, we're completely strategy focused, and we will help you individually with your strategy and make sure that you don't have to become a CPA. You don't have to know the ins and outs of the tax code. Keep focusing on your business, but become tax literate and financially literate. And we can help you do that in a way that requires minimal time and minimal effort. And then you can go to your CPA and hold them accountable and say, hey, yeah, you're preparing the tax return for me, but should we be an S Corp? Should I be deducting X, Y, and Z? And that gives the power back to the entrepreneurs themselves.
Right. Which is a really, really key point. I'm glad you brought that out, is that, I like my CPA and I don't want to fire them. And Brian's in here going, you don't have to. What you help entrepreneurs do is own that part of our business, even though I'm not doing it, right? So marketing is something an entrepreneur should own, but you hire people to execute. And
absolutely,
that's really what you're talking about in how you work with entrepreneurs, is and explain a little bit. Is it a coaching program? Is it a long term? Unpack that just a tad
Yeah.
so we get a feel.
We have different service offerings for different levels across the spectrum, all the way up to private clients who have everything done for them. But again, for the majority of entrepreneurs, especially the newer ones, that's not where they're at. And
Right.
what I think we offer that is unique is that level of service where there is some one-on-one coaching and there is some walking through and hand-holding on tax planning, but there's also informational products, courses, things that allow you to go in, watch a video, educate yourself on a topic, and be guided through this framework to say, what do I need to understand about entity structures? What is an LLC versus an S Corp versus a C corporation, and which one's right for me, and how do I figure that out? And then you can have individual coaching to guide you along through that process.
Yeah. Brilliant. And you've dropped it in there a couple of times early when you're starting out a business. You can work with anybody in business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
that is the key. We have some services that are really closer to traditional services of larger CPA firms that will help larger clients for higher ticket dollar amounts. But the main focus of what we're doing with Contigo Advisors is about this lower price point. So $997 for a year, $1,000. And that gives entrepreneurs a tax plan for the year. And if you think about the value of a tax plan for almost anyone, the average entrepreneur is overpaying. There's a study that the average entrepreneur is overpaying by $11,000 a year, over $11,000 a year. And I believe it. I see it all the time. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's way more than that. But even for newer entrepreneurs, $5,000 is almost just assumed.
Yeah.
There are so many tax strategies. There are so many opportunities for business owners to lower their taxes. And just one single strategy can save you thousands of dollars year over year over year over year. So to be able to have something at this price point that gives you not just a product that you have to log into and figure it out yourself and go watch hours and hours of videos, but you have the access to that, but also individual coaching, one-on-one calls, group calls, and information proactively fed to you so that you can learn new strategies as they come out, understand the basics. And again, really the key is taking ownership of your own financial knowledge and future by understanding the strategies that you need as an entrepreneur.
Dude, all right. If you missed any of that, go back and listen to it, because what he just dropped was a massive bomb of value. Because if you could go and work with Brian and his team at Contigo Advisors and go through their program for a year, $1,000, okay, and save $1,000 a year on your taxes for the rest of your career. All right, more than paid for it, but you're going to save a lot more than that. The story came to me when you were talking. I live in Arkansas, and the world famous company that's from Arkansas is Walmart.
Yeah.
And I read or heard one time that Sam Walton, when he had like his first store and he was getting ready to just blow up and expand like crazy, he did the work to set up his estate and all of this stuff before he ever got big, and it saved his family. Oh, I forget how many. I mean, it was like almost $1 billion in like taxes and things because he set it up early. And that's the point I want to make to business owners. Do it early, but if you're midstream, do it now, because you're going to be doing this for a long time.
Yeah. What's the saying about planting a tree? The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yes.
But that's 100% true. And, you mentioned the Waltons, like this is a classic example of where the wealthy in the United States understand something about taxes that a lot of times newer entrepreneurs just don't. That's not how we're trained to think about taxes. We think about it as, okay, we're going to earn money and then we'll pay taxes and then we'll live on whatever's left. And the wealthy think about the opposite. We're going to earn money, then we're going to make our investments and our big financial commitments, and then we'll pay taxes based on what's left after that. And oftentimes it's little to nothing. And that's why you hear about that, but it's not because they're doing anything wrong. They just understand that the government has put into place incentives. They want, a couple of months ago, 6 months ago, there was all this news about the semiconductors and trying to bring that onshore. Well, how do they do that? They give tax incentives. And so there are all these kinds of tax incentives in the code for small business owners and mid-sized business owners and investors. And just understanding what is out there, it allows you to essentially take partnership with the government in moving the economy along and kind of raising the tide for all boats. So it's great for everybody. And the most entrepreneurs, though, we're all benefiting from that like rising tide, but we're not all taking that primary benefit of this partnership with the government and letting them help come in and help us fund some of these investments that grow our own wealth.
I love it. I love it. So partner with Uncle Sam. And usually when we say that, everybody's like, get away, because he's going to take all my money. And what Brian is saying, no, partner with him and let him put more money in your pocket because of all these strategies, these IRS tax code strategies that are there for the taking. Going back to Walmart, and I don't know this. This is me speaking totally out of turn. I'm pretty convinced that Sam Walton didn't know everything he needed to understand about taxes and everything. He hired people who knew that to set it up right. And that's really the proposition Brian's putting on the table today is business owners, audience. We don't know these things because we're not CPAs. We haven't gone to school with it. And God forbid I have to. I would rather just reach out to Brian and say, could you teach me in a process where I get to talk with a human who actually understands? It's not somebody, it's not somebody in the Philippines. It's Brian or his team. They understand. Right. Small group, accountability. And when you start understanding the value of saving money legally through taxes and what you can do to leverage that to expand your business, to grow your family's wealth, life pivots. Life becomes different. You see through a different lens. Do you see that happening with the people you work with, Brian?
100%. Honestly, it sounds like a sales pitch, but it's real life. That I have seen so many entrepreneurs from the time they start in business to the time when they hit this kind of financial freedom level of wealth is 5 years. It's not a crazy amount of time. This doesn't have to be something that we think about on a scale of decades, because if you are able to save $5,000 in taxes this year and put that back into your business or another investment and grow that, and then save an extra $10,000 that you would have paid to the IRS next year and put that back in and grow that, and the things you're investing into create more tax deductions. This creates a feedback loop, like a flywheel of financial growth that is so powerful. It can really accelerate the level of wealth of an entrepreneur in less time than you would imagine. And it really comes down to this idea of how much money are we giving away every year in taxes because we don't know the incentives. What if we took advantage of those same incentives, put that money into investments that grew instead of an expense that we're never going to see again?
Yeah, because it's really fascinating, because Uncle Sam, at the end of the day, he wants your money in the economy. He wants it running the economy. Yeah, he doesn't have a big bank that's sitting here. That's not his purpose. His purpose is to spur the economy. And that's what Brian can help us understand. As entrepreneurs, we have to have a handle on our money. And so many times we just think revenue, net profit, revenue. What's my profit and loss sheet say? Well, that's good. But when you understand what Brian brings to the table, and then really you're offering an education in tax strategy, right?
Yeah. What it comes down to is we don't have a way to scale everything. If we're working with business owners and trying to do the same thing that their current CPAs are doing, then we're going to get dragged into the same cycle of just focusing on trying to get tax returns done in the right numbers in the right boxes. But more and more, that's becoming something that's automated, that is done by software and can be done inexpensively by a CPA who can get everything right and put in the right place. But what has not occurred yet for most CPAs, and precisely because they're so bogged down doing hundreds and hundreds of tax returns, is this shift over to strategic thinking. And so that's really where we want to jump in and help out. And again, work both in an informational way and also in an individual coaching way, where I can bring the things that I know about taxes to help entrepreneurs both in group form and in one-on-one form, and keep the focus on that and on the strategy so that we can really deliver a fantastic product focused on strategy. And, you know, the compliance can be done anywhere. Anyone can pretty much put the right numbers in the right boxes.
Right. And it puts the entrepreneur in the driver's seat, because so many entrepreneurs are clueless when it comes to accounting. We just give it to the accountant and hope it's done right. Brian gives you, equips you with the opportunity to have the education to know what you need to know, to have a resource you can go to ask questions, and to hold yourself and your company accountable to grow more wealth for your business and for your family. Brian, man, we could talk for a long time because you've just scratched the surface here. How do people find that next step for you? Where do they go to connect with you to learn more about this?
So probably the best place to connect with me is on Instagram, and we can link it up. I think it's Brian_Basinger at Instagram, but we can link that up. And the main place to see what is available and to work with us would be on our website, which is just contigoadvisors.com. We have, most weeks, we have a free webinar that people can attend. It's live with an open forum question and answer. So if you have any tax questions and just need to get an answer, you can join us there. But all of that is routed through the website, contigoadvisors.com.
Excellent. I'm going to have that link in the show notes. So if you're out walking the dog, driving, or whatever, no worries. I got you covered. And this is really intriguing because Brian's going to be able to help you own the financial aspect of your business with taxes, understand it better, and really save you money long term, because one strategy, once implemented, should work year after year after year after year, which is really fun.
Absolutely.
And there are a multiplicity of these strategies. Which one's right for you? Well, that's why you have these coaching calls with Brian and his team. So ContigoAdvisors.com is the website. We're going to have everything in the show notes for you. Brian Basinger, thank you. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Thanks, Michael. I really appreciate it.